What's up, YouTube? Culturedog Sam Hatch with another Laserdisc Spotlight review. I've been tearing through them, lots of Laserdiscs, and I had a copy of this film that had succumbed to the rot that I had heard had plagued this release. Not too bad, where it was completely unwatchable, but I had received another copy in a lot, and it was definitely in better shape. There was only mild rot on the beginning of a few of the sides, and it was completely watchable. So I figured I'd fire it up and test out the new player that I had gotten with The Fugitive, a common that everybody just about everybody seems to have. And this was a test disc du jour back in the day. Everybody liked playing the first side, which is in CAV, just because it has the train wreck scene, and that was like a kind of a go-to test scene for a long time. You know, not really AC-3 surround. This is before those days on home video, so it's just surround. PCM track with ProLogic encoding, but it's good widescreen release. I think it's 1.85:1, and Andrew Davis directed. Very capable, stylish thriller. Again, it takes place largely in kind of like nondescript, drab color locales. A lot of Chicago street scenes, etc. The most vibrant color you're going to get is from a St. Patrick's Day celebration where the rivers dyed green in one scene. But I mean, so it's not really like a stunner in terms of visual quality. I mean, it's a crisp transfer, but the palette of the film is very, very drab and not very distinct. But everybody loves the train crash scene for the bombast of it and the sheer like home theater experience. And again, it still plays really well today. There's a scene. A portion of the scene where Richard Kimball, played by Harrison Ford, is kind of diving off the top of a bus as it's about to get hit by a train, and you could clearly see it's like a back projection, but or a composite shot, but still pretty good. And but yeah, it's an adaptation of the TV series about a man whose wife is murdered. In this case, Dr. Richard Kimball is a very well respected Chicago physician, and he's accused of killing his wife, despite the fact that he insists that there was a one-armed man at the scene that he struggled with and is the real murderer. And it's a pretty cool tale of one man deciding that after he escapes prison, or the threat of going to another prison, that instead of going into hiding and living like a real fugitive, he should start solving the crime that nobody else is involved in or interested in solving, including Tommy Lee Jones, this U.S. Marshal who shows up, and his only concern is recapturing a fugitive. And Harrison Ford's got the notorious scene where he faces off against him in a spillway and says, I didn't kill my wife, and Tommy Lee Jones says, I don't care. So that's kind of what this film is about. Like, nobody cares, so he's got to go and solve the case himself. And then along the way, it leaves a lot of interesting clues in his wake that starts illuminating the case for other people following him, and making Tommy Lee Jones realize that perhaps this guy is innocent after all. So it's pretty good and well structured. There's a lot of kind of Deus Ex Machina moments within the film. There's a really good quality Irish hat in a trash bin that he just picks up and throws on his head when he needs to meld in during a parade. And nobody's quite sure where he gets a lot of the things that he needs. There's some hair dye and stuff like that he gets. But again, I don't know, that stuff's just broad strokes. It's really not that important to get into in the nitty gritty of the script. So I can understand why they skip over things. But some people have pointed out that there's a lot of convenience at play, and Richard Kimball's continuing to avoid the law. But the only thing I ever jumped out at me is it was always weird. There's a scene where he's going to speak with a prisoner who he thinks may be involved in the case, and by this point the marshals have realized that he is probably going to go and approach this person, so they have an all points bulletin out, and Tommy Lee Jones and his crew are all surrounding this building awaiting Richard Kimball to arrive. And they do see him, and he there's the foot chase that eventually culminates in him diving out between, what Indiana Jones or Han Solo between these closing doors as the building's being sealed off, and he gets his foot caught in the doors. And Tommy Lee Jones notoriously shoots his gun at his head, but is behind bulletproof glass. Never understood why he just didn't shoot him in the foot, but I don't know, maybe I was missing something. Other than that, it's a solid film, and I thought for a second maybe it was a 90s film that was respected at the time, but maybe it's become a little bit forgettable. But watching it again, no, it actually does work really well. A lot of the stuff with pharmaceutical companies with deep pockets making horrible moves and kind of corrupting the waters plays great today. It's still very applicable to modern society and our kind of our kind of political landscape. And Euron Crabbe is great in a supporting role. Julianne Moore in a tiny role in this film, blink and you miss her, is pretty good. Jane Lynch also has a brief moment in the film. But yeah, it was definitely a good structured thriller. It kind of puts you through the ringer a little bit, siding with this character who as a viewer is innocent, but kind of puts you through the ringer. Like, is he ever going to get his name cleared? Is he ever going to come out on top? So much is going against him. Not only just trying to solve the crime and do that, there's so many obstacles with solving the crime, but then on top of that, he's a wanted man and has to kind of duck cops and everything like that. There's some great red herring scenes, like if you've ever seen Silence of the Lambs, where a bunch of cops show up at one door and you expect that the scene you're seeing on the inside is the flip side of that door, but it's not. It's a totally different location. There's some scenes like that in here where there's a character that these marshals go after and you're assuming it's Kimball, but because of the way it's cleverly structured, you just hear them say, he is here, he is this. And so yeah, there's a lot of those kind of things that are good script trickery. But yeah, it's worth picking up. There is a anamorphic pressing of this that was released for people with Toshiba televisions, the widescreen 16:9 TVs that they were trying to market in the 90s but kind of failed at. Over here in the States, they never had any official squeeze release or anamorphically enhanced discs like they did in Japan. They only had giveaways that you could get if you bought a widescreen television set. And I do have the one that they had released for The Unforgiven, but I'd actually like to check out The Fugitive, because this looks pretty sharp for a non-anamorphically enhanced release. I watched it on my projector, and it looked really good, actually. A lot of details in the suits and everything like that. Didn't have a lot of aliasing or anything like that. So rot, I don't think is an issue either on the anamorphic release. So I'm definitely interested in hunting that down at some point. But this was a early 90s, 1993 release. 1994 is when the disc came out. This was like a must-have release for Laserdisc collectors back in the day, and still now I can see why it still holds up and is worth a watch for sure. All right, well, thanks for hanging out. I'm going to do some more Spotlight videos. I think I'm going to do some Blu-ray Spotlights next, and we'll talk shortly. Cheers!